So are we starting to see the price of gold drop, or is there some kind of other event happening today? There is, but we're going to take a look at the bigger picture because that's where some of the ugly stuff lives. We've been talking a lot about risk premium on gold, how a major event like a war or a regional conflict, whatever you want to call it, will spike the price of gold and then leave us wondering if that spike is just short term or something that's going to stick around. So let's hit the charts. We were seeing gold near $1,800. This isn't going to show it. Some of it was intraday, but 3 weeks later, the price of gold was over $2,000. Now here's where we are now. I'm going to come back to this with a little bit more information in a minute. The bigger story right now on gold might just be the changes in retail purchasing. Like maybe the conflict in the Middle East isn't sending buyers into the coin shops. It's sending in sellers. And that isn't a normal thing. So we have a war pushing prices up. We have investors rushing into safe haven assets, but physical buyers may be doing the opposite. And that's worth paying attention to. Now, first off, let's be clear. Any information I'm about to give you is only anecdotal. I spoke with 6 dealers. 3 of them were online dealers. 3 of them were local. And the local ones that I know, I asked them a little bit more about sales. And what they said is that sales are down. The local shop said they haven't really been excited about buying new gold over the counter because it's just not going out as fast. Now, I think I saw Silver Seeker spoke with a dealer who said the same. So now we're talking about 3 or 4 local shops. It's definitely not enough to draw any real conclusions, but it's definitely a dead canary in the coal mine. It's something we don't normally see. Now, normally when conflicts hit, gold prices, they spike. People rush into the shops to buy. It's a case of buying on the rumor. The less certainty there is on any situation, the more people rush into things like gold, especially if they see the prices spiking. So I've shown what happened with the gold prices around the time of the Russian invasion of Ukraine last year in 2022. We saw gold spike, and then we started to see it come down about 4 weeks later. That wasn't because the situation improved. It was just that the news was catching up to the situation. People understood the conflict. They were less concerned another conflict was about to spark, and that's the idea of selling the news. Buy the rumor, sell the news. Now, I've been saying I assume we'll see the same thing, and we are starting to see prices come back down already, even though there's no resolution yet. But the interesting part here is that a lot of the buying activity has been from traders. Traders with the D. We're talking about investors. And I've mentioned these Friday spikes in gold price and then the Monday dumps. So you have investors buying up gold prior to the weekend just in case something escalates while the market's closed. So the 2 local shops I spoke with said they saw an uptick at the initial news of the attack, but then it dropped off. And when spot price hit that magic $2,000 mark, it signaled to a lot of people that, hey, maybe it's time to sell. And those dealers were seeing people bringing in gold at a higher rate than people buying. And I feel like maybe that was a bit of an exaggeration on both their parts, but it was a notable shift that they were seeing. So rewind back in time a little bit. I've given examples of how I had trouble selling 20 francs roosters and some other European gold. One of those shops knows this story because his predecessor is the person who gave me all the grief. So for a lot of years, I felt I had to be careful about what I was buying. I know my dealers like American Gold Eagles, Buffaloes, Canadian Maple Leafs, of course, Krugerrands. This always gets me this side eye from people out there. There's always going to be someone out there who's skeptical that every dealer wouldn't want any gold, regardless of what it is. Now, this shouldn't really be a surprise because it's a simple case of shelf life. Eagles and Maple Leafs, they sell fast. Buffaloes sell fast. Those shops, especially the smaller ones, but the 2 that I spoke with aren't really small. And they have buyers who really only buy a few things. So if they have plenty of Eagles and Buffaloes and Maple Leafs and Krugs, and then they have a lunar snake on the shelf, well, they have to get a very specific buyer in the shop to move that snake. It's just common sense. On the old European gold, that's a little bit different. I've been told that it's just more complicated for different weights, different purities. People don't understand it. And one says it messes with his inventory accounting. I don't know what that means. Maybe he does it with the calculator. But I asked him if he'd buy my roosters. I was joking. I didn't tell him that. He said he didn't really want them. Now, nobody panic here. That was just one dealer. But again, dead canary in the coal mine. So maybe a little bit of it's coming back around again. I'm not saying that you're not going to be able to sell, but you might not have as many options. Could just take you more time. It all depends on what you have. Now, you can always sell to the online dealers, right? Well, we're going to come back to that. So I asked 5 dealers for price quotes on a few coins about a week ago when the spot price of gold was right around $2,000. So just for context, the price right now, it's around $19.60 as I'm filming this. We're getting ready to hear from Jerome Powell. It always spikes a little bit on that. So no real surprises on prices. When I asked about eagles, about maple leafs, about buffaloes, it's about what I typically hear. Right around spot for the maple leafs, right around 2% for the eagles and the buffaloes. It all varies slightly. Again, I talked to 6 dealers. So I'm giving averages. The online dealers typically pay a little bit more, but then shipping comes out of that. So it's all pretty similar. I did ask about this 2009 ultra high relief double eagle. Not that I'm going to get rid of it, but most said they would have to see it, see the quality before they'd give a price. Now, one, though, said they'd give spot. Now, just for the record, I wasn't trying to waste anybody's time. I have relationships with all of them, and I did sell a little bit of gold at the time, but I was asking about more just so I would know. And I asked about a few Perth Mint coins because I seem to have a lot of them. I thought they would just be a good example of a random 24-karat sovereign mint gold coin. So I wasn't expecting any surprises, but a few of those dealers actually declined to buy a few of them. These are online dealers, so you wouldn't expect that, or at least I wouldn't. The largest online dealer, I'll let you guess who that is, they actually declined the most recent Chinese myths and legends coin. That's the Phoenix. I would grab it to show, but I don't have it here right now. They didn't give a price. They just said they wouldn't buy it. They declined. They were the last people I spoke with, so I hadn't asked about that one specifically prior to it, but I was surprised that they wouldn't buy it back because they were the ones who were selling it exclusively when it was first released. So this is really just meant to be a point of data. No need to worry about being able to sell that Phoenix if you have one, but there are cases to consider. If you wanted to take advantage of a price spike to sell some gold or silver, you probably won't be the only one with that in mind. That means it's a buyer's market, and they're going to most likely be pickier. Now, the same goes if there's some kind of general lull going on in the market. I think it's safe to say that anything is going to sell if the price is right. So your worst case might just be taking less for the gold you're trying to sell, but there will always be times when a dealer might decline to buy altogether. And that's the part that I always get the skeptical side eye from people on. It happens, though. It's happened to me a number of times, and it's a pain because selling is obviously going to take you a lot longer if you have to shop around. So the last few videos I've been mentioning patience and timing. Buying during a price spike from a regional conflict is probably not a great idea. The price spike from Russia's initial invasion in 2022, that lasted 5 weeks, as I showed earlier in there. So there's nothing saying that we're seeing the same thing with the Israeli conflict, that it has to follow the same pattern, but we did see a 7% jump, and we are technically still inside the window of that spike. So the risk premium is still there, but we're already starting to see it come down. Now, there's a little bit of a blip going on today because we're about to be hearing from the Fed, from Jerome Powell. But it's possible we've already seen the top on that particular risk premium from the conflict. So timing, it is important. You might think that it all averages out or it just doesn't matter what you buy. And there's probably enough gray area here, enough unique cases where everyone will probably be right in their specific case. That's if you're not just making an assumption. So if I had 2 bits of advice to give, it would just be to consider what you're buying and consider when, because at some point you're going to thank yourself. Well, let's call it good there. Let us know if you're buying or you're waiting, if you've already sold, if you've tried to sell, and then where you expect to see prices going over the next few weeks. I think my guess is pretty clear. I'd like to hear yours too. So let us know. And then while you're in the comments, be sure to hit that like button if you found any of this interesting. Be sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you'd like to see more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.